Welcome to Moon Me, an astrology podcast where we explore astrology, tarot, psychology, and astrocartography. With your hosts, Roxy and Izzy, we dive into the connection between the stars and the self. Hello, and welcome to part two of our episodes about the houses in astrology. In our part one, you will see that we have covered houses 1 to 6, and today we're going to get into houses 7 to 12. So, if we have to start with the seventh house, Izzy, what comes to mind? What do you relate to the seventh house?
For for me, the seventh house is really, the most like basic answer is it's other people. It's relationships with other people, but it's also I feel like it's closeness, it's relationship dynamics. It is one-to-one committed partnerships and connections. And that doesn't only mean romance, it also just means like companionship and even business partnerships, but I guess it is really where we look in the chart. It's a part of the chart that we look at when we want to gain more insight about a person's love life, for sure. Um, I think the sign ruling over it will say a lot about that person's approach to dealing with other people. And yeah, it could be really interesting when you look at the house order and you look at the seventh house. It could reveal a lot about a person because it's opposite the ascendant. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The seventh house talks about significant connections. As you said, more often than not, that's romantic. But it also includes business connections, connections that help you elevate in some ways, whether that's in your career or in your personal life. Another thing that it often represents, though, is what we seek in others. So it might be the kind of person that we're drawn towards. In romantic partnership, of course, in many different types of connections, including friendship, but more often than not, I've seen it representing a person that someone is romantically curious about or intrigued about. For example, if you had Aquarius in your seventh house, perhaps you like someone a little bit more detached, more rational, intelligent, can be cold at times, someone different, offbeat, unique, anti-societal. And it's not to say that that person would have Aquarius placements, but often it is the sort of traits that you find someone attracted to.
Yeah, and I would find that like there's always if you look at the person and their descendant and if they are in a committed partnership, and you look at their partner's chart. Yes, like you said, maybe they won't have like Aquarius in the big three, but there's something in there, maybe in the chart. Maybe they're born under a certain decan of an air sign that has that, or maybe their Venus is in Aquarius, or maybe their Saturn. Something Aquarian is probably present in the chart. Very, very more than likely. It's because again, like we never just look at the sun sign or even just the big three. We look at the whole chart. So I agree with you.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, as much as it points to the kind of people we're attracted to, it would also point to certain relationship patterns, would you say? Particularly with certain signs or certain planets?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And just I think like the person's, yeah, their dynamics, their relationship dynamics, how they tend to play out, and just the way they approach relationships. Like, for example, and I actually think it's interestingly enough, I think the seventh house is a key component in debunking a lot of the stereotypes about rising signs. So, like, hear me out. I feel like you know
Okay.
where I'm going with this. Like,
Hmm.
for example, like Libra rising, right? Libra is known to be stereotypically speaking, like more agreeable, more cooperative, and all of that. The sign Libra. But again, that doesn't really apply to Libra risings. Why? Because their descendant is an Aries and they they could be very fiery in their relationships, and I've seen it with with Libra rising people that I know. Their approaches could be more domineering actually than one would expect when dealing with people, because the ascendant is kind of what you're learning to embody,
Hmm.
not necessarily how you are as is.
Hmm.
You're ascending into that version, kind of.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And of course it's exasperated when you have certain planets or placements, right? For example, I have my south node in my seventh house, and I have my north node in my first house. So it's sort of this like stronger push towards focusing on myself and my personal growth than to focus on my partnerships. And I think the opposite can be true when certain planets are found in the seventh house. Like maybe your north node's in your seventh house and you have a lot more to learn from your connections. Or you have Mars in your seventh house, which can give that Aries quality to even a sign like Libra, right? If it were to take place in the seventh house.
Yeah, it's interesting because I recently worked with a client who was a Libra sun but had Mars and Pluto, I believe, in the seventh house.
Hmm.
And I was like, whoa, interesting.
That, yeah, that can be quite intense. How does Mars usually manifest in the seventh house, would you say? Or what have you seen in your clients, in yourself?
I think like it could often manifest in the form of like kind of conflictive relationships where there's a bit of a power struggle or a bit of
Hmm.
like opposing energies, like a bit of a clash, but
Hmm.
also like a lot of passion,
Mm.
especially sexual passion. So it's not all bad, but I think like it also depends on the Mars sign. Like if it's like maybe Mars in Aries in the seventh house, I'd be like, whoa, watch out. Or even Mars in Libra, because or Mars in Cancer, because those are such like more passive aggressive, kind of sneaky Mars signs. I feel like it plays out worse or better depending on the sign that Mars is in.
Do you personally have anything in your seventh house in Cancer?
No, I don't have anything in my seventh house. I have nothing in Cancer in my chart besides my seventh house being ruled by Cancer. I have no planets in Cancer at all,
Interesting.
which is really interesting. In my relocated chart, I have Moon here, conjunct the descendant. And my seventh house is ruled by Libra in Madrid in my relocated chart. So, and it's interesting because I really didn't meet any partners until I came to this area of the world. And it really tracks because I had an empty seventh house in New York. Like in my birth chart, it's empty. There's nothing there, nothing going on.
Hmm. But I guess that would mean it's quite simple, isn't it? It's not really a focus of yours, but there's not huge lessons or triumphant victories that need to be had in terms of seventh house themes. Would you say that was true for you?
Yeah, I mean, really, like in New York, like there was no energy around that. Like
Hmm.
it's all the people I've ever dated were from either like or were from or lived in like Portugal, Spain, like Morocco, like they were in this area of the world,
Hmm.
interestingly. Never anyone in New York. Like I had no real connection with anyone in that kind of way.
Hmm.
Um, it was a lot more just kind of, yeah, nothing serious. So, yeah.
All right. So, what I'm really excited to get into is the eighth house, which you'll notice in part one, for anyone who's listening, that we spoke about the eighth house being, kind of a difficult house, kind of a mysterious house to fully understand or grasp the concepts. But if I had to be, give an overall perception of the eighth house, it would be kind of Scorpio coded. So there's definitely this layer of mystery, mostly because I think it rules things like taboo. The kinds of things that people don't always want to talk about, that people don't always want to look at. But I think it also really rules our transformations that we go through. Some of the difficult times that we go through in order to learn can be found in the eighth house. Would you say that's true?
Definitely. I definitely especially resonate with the part about the eighth house ruling over the things that society kind of wants to ignore. And we
Hmm.
see that in the 12th house too, in a different way. But I think those are the parallels between the 12th and the eighth house that it's basically, I like to call it the house of topics that you can't bring up at the dinner table. You can't bring up inheritance.
Hmm.
You can't always bring up sex. I mean, you should be able to, but certain audiences you just can't. You can't. Bringing up death makes people uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Um, bringing up business contracts makes people uncomfortable. So all those topics make people uncomfortable, but I also add that I also look at the eighth house as like ruling over our relationship with control
Hmm.
because it's very much associated with the subconscious and things that kind of just happen. Like death happens, it's inevitable. It really deals with inevitable themes. And so I think that a big part of the eighth house is exploring our relationship to control and also our relationship with our deepest fears as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I like the deepest fears as well, certainly. I mean, I am a person with Chiron in my eighth house, so it's a bit, but in general, yeah, I think definitely deepest fears. Also, our shared resources, right? The money that we share with others, our taxes, things of that nature. Also, something that's not fun that people don't want to look at. Where
People avoid.
it's actually beneficial for people in power for that to be hidden somewhat as well, right? There's this sense of it's taboo, but in reality, people could use that maybe to manipulate us or get under our skin or cross us in some ways. So there's a lot of, not quite as much as the 12th house, the house of enemies, but I do find there's a lot of under the table stuff that goes on in the eighth house, depending on the planets, of course, that can shape us in many ways and many of our fears as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like the background noise. It's that weird type of even, if you think about it, it the order is so perfect because like the seventh house also rules marriage. And then the eighth house is kind of like the next level to the marriage in the traditional sense, like intimacy, sex, like um shared resources. It's kind of the next logical step in a marriage in the traditional sense.
Hmm.
Obviously, not everybody follows those kind of things, but it is what the eighth house represents. And astrology is very ancient, so um, yeah,
Yeah.
there's some parts of it that are more, I guess, look at things in a more old-fashioned way, but it's
Hmm.
still really interesting.
Yeah. Something I've been thinking about with regards to the eighth house as well is could it tell us something about what makes us feel safe? Or does it only tell us what our fears are and what we don't want to look at? What do you think about that? Do you think that we can look to our eighth house as a way of understanding ourselves and how we feel safe?
I think, yeah. I think you can, like, by knowing what planets are there, especially I feel like the transits will kind of tell us about a lot about that.
Mm.
Like, it's to me, it's kind of like when you have a certain transit in the eighth house, it's kind of like, okay, like what have you been neglecting? What have you been avoiding? What do you need to confront that? What do you need to do to confront that, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, there does seem to be this connection to transformation, which we've already mentioned, but I guess that would be the path to transformation, would be understanding your eighth house a little bit better. Also, as we've spoken about in previous episodes, would be understanding your Pluto house, your Pluto planet and sign and house as well, right? So yeah, it's definitely an interesting house. It can be hard for me to access sometimes because I have Chiron in the eighth house. So I think one of the biggest things, for example, if you have Chiron in the eighth house, is a little bit of fear of intimacy, a little bit of fear of deep, deep connection. There
Like
might
getting
be
too
some,
close,
yeah,
feeling caged in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And depending on the sign as well, right? So mine, I'm going to be super vulnerable here. Mine is in Leo, so it's really about being seen fully for who I am. And intimacy requires that. And that's been a lifelong, I wouldn't say overt fear at the forefront of my mind, but certainly something that's held me back in connection in general.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I have, we both are Capricorn risings, and like we both have Leo ruling over the eighth, and like in my business, for example, like I really struggle with like m making videos and all of that because it's just like, ugh, like the visibility factor and the being
Mm-hmm.
like having the attention on me is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if that makes sense. It's
Absolutely.
it's tough. And
Absolutely.
some people are so like natural at it or so comfortable with it, but that's something for me that I've had to struggle with. And interestingly, like I don't have Chiron in Leo, but in Placidus, the other another house system, I
Mm-hmm.
have my Chiron in the eighth house, and there are definitely things about Chiron in the eighth house that really resonate for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite a placement. I mean, I would say if you had like Venus in the eighth house, you might just have a little bit more harmony, a more balanced approach when it comes to your own fears or things that are taboo, right? Or you might be able to use those themes to create money or to be seen in a favorable way, right? Like I've seen people with Venus in the eighth house maybe using their sexuality in positive ways that makes them very magnetic and very successful in some ways, for example.
Yeah, that's really interesting when you look at it like in that way. But it's true though. Venus in the eighth house could could definitely manifest like that. I
Mm.
agree.
Yeah, and I think the sign that you find in the eighth house can also sort of dictate how easily you move through transformation. So, for example, I feel like a fixed sign like Taurus or even
Leo,
Leo.
we have a fixed
Yeah.
sign.
Or what's the fixed signs
Scorpio,
I'm hitting is like Scorpio. Oh, Scorpio eighth house is interesting. But in general, I
Aquarius.
would say, yeah, I would say fixed signs are a little bit, really focused and good at completing those transformations, but it might take a little bit longer. There might be a little bit too much holding on or attachment to certain moments in our path, for example. Whereas I feel like a Pisces eighth house could just like sort of swim through it. You
Oh
know?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense
Hmm.
because the fixed signs, like we are the refiners, right? Like we're the
Hmm.
refiners. We're not gonna complete a cycle until we know it's like everything's good to go,
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely.
And it's that it could be kind of painfully like pulling teeth. It could feel like
Hmm.
that, I think,
Yeah.
with especially, oh my God, like a Taurus eighth house. Oh dear.
Yeah. But if you
Like
think about,
Leo, Aquarius wouldn't be the worst, but I feel Taurus would be a tough one.
yeah.
It's the
Um,
opposite sign to Scorpio, so yeah.
yeah, and it's not exactly a sign that likes to be super intimate. They're quite independent, right? Being sort of in the opposition with Scorpio. I mean, they want connection, but they sort of do it through their own independence.
Yeah,
So eighth house could be tricky.
they're not about merging.
There
They're
we go.
not about merging like this is mine, that's yours, like type. Yeah, it's an interesting sign, Taurus. It's a very
Hmm.
interesting sign.
Yeah, we love you guys. Don't get us wrong. Also, I would say, what did I want to say now? Oh, the fire signs. The fire signs, I feel like can move through their transformations quite comically, almost like nothing gets done properly, you know?
Like winging it. They are the definition of like winging it.
Absolutely. There might be a need to go back and relay foundations and groundwork. There might be a lot of moving in passion, and emotion. without giving it the time and space it needs, which I feel like the eighth house often calls for.
Yeah. Yeah, like the eighth house is calling on you to kind of sit with the discomfort.
Hmm.
And the fire signs might want to breeze through it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Although fire signs might be more comfortable with change, fire and water signs, air signs and earth signs, they might need a little more time, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us to the ninth house, which is one of my favorites. Ninth house usually is
Yes.
connected with travel, beliefs, higher learning. What does the ninth house mean for you? What comes up?
I feel like it is definitely like higher learning, higher education, um, exploration, learning in just every sense of the word. Um, the unknown, foreign lands, foreign cultures, but also I think a big part of it that gets overlooked is experiences.
Hmm.
Because I think whereas the third house is more like superficial knowledge and communication, the ninth house is deeper and calls on us to go deeper. And I think a big part of the ninth house is about learning through life experience, in
Yes.
addition to academia and all of that. It's just like embodied learning. I like to call it the house of embodied learning.
I love
That makes
that. Yeah. It's very much learning through contrast of culture, right? The ninth house really represent places that are, it's a different culture, a different value system, a different norms, different rules perhaps. And you go into these spaces and you learn so much. And what you're learning is perspective. You're widening your perspective through those ninth house themes, right? For me personally, for example, I have Jupiter in the ninth house, which is really tracking in my life, not just with my travels, with every little course and diploma I've picked up along the way. It's also been the way I've traveled and the way I've connected with the places I've been. And then finally, Jupiter ruling sort of masculine energy is where I met my partner traveling, right? Who speaks a different language to me that is from a different culture, yeah, and different language and different country, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I love Jupiter in the ninth house, although I do not have Jupiter in the ninth house. I love that placement because it's I think it also signifies um kind of like a lot of experiencing a lot of growth and positive development through travel. I have a really good friend of mine who I've done readings for and stuff who has Jupiter in the ninth. And he really wasn't traveling all that much when we first met, like 10 years ago. Oh my God, yeah, we met 10 years ago. And where did the time go? And a couple years ago, like he started really traveling because he's in the music industry and he's like a very independent artist. And so he went to Paris, he came to Spain, then he went to Thailand, and now he's been traveling a lot. And he's like my career and so many things for me have like improved. And I've gotten so many benefits from traveling. And I
Hmm.
feel like that's very Jupiter ninth house. That's very Jupiter ninth house. Like the gifts
Absolutely.
come when you get out of your comfort zone and explore what's out there waiting for you.
100%. Jupiter in the ninth house can also be quite skeptical, right? The way they go about learning things. But more specifically, because my Jupiter is in Virgo in the ninth house.
Ah,
So
yeah, you are skeptical, I think. You're
super
you're you're a
skeptical.
skeptic. You're a skeptic.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Which is good.
Um,
I wish I were more like that.
yeah. But even if it wasn't Virgo, I feel like Jupiter in the ninth house is very lucky, but also it's skeptical in the sense that it's approaches information in a different way, right? It's like being bombarded with information and being able to pick out what is correct, what's right, what makes sense, and create a picture from that. So I feel like Jupiter in the ninth house people are quite larger picture thinkers, if that is a way I could describe it.
Yeah, like I think they don't get bogged down in the details necessarily. They're more,
Mhm.
yeah, they see all the moving parts. which is kind of like contradictory to what I just said, but I know what I mean.
All right. Yeah. Um, One last thing that I guess I'll say about the ninth house is that it represents, I think, how our beliefs might change over time. I think transits through the ninth house can really, depending on the planet, can really represent changes in beliefs and sometimes can even show a cycle in the way we think, the way we revisit our beliefs, the way we, what would the word be, expand on our beliefs as we go along the way. Do you have any planets in the ninth house?
I have Chiron.
Oof, interesting.
It's interesting because I really feel like I haven't, I mean, I guess, yeah, like I've definitely struggled with cultural barriers in my relationship
Mm,
talked about.
mm,
So, but it's really only shown up there. I feel like I thrive in foreign cultures. I feel like I'm very comfortable with
mm-hmm.
travel and, I live abroad and I've studied abroad in countries and all of that. So,
Yeah, sometimes Chiron represents learning more than anything, right? And I think we actually did speak about this, about how growing up, maybe you didn't always feel so safe in your surroundings. And that sort of trauma maybe might have pushed you to seek something different. And we see that
yeah,
sometimes with
my
Chiron.
surroundings never, yeah, like my surroundings, like growing up in like a very like mostly like Italian American, which is very different from Italian. Like it, because it was weird because I grew up in a very like Italian American kind of community because my parents are Italian, but my mom is like literally from Italy. So she had very different cultural values and norms from the Italian Americans.
Mm,
So I always felt this kind of confusion
mm,
and this disconnect. And I always resonated more with the like Italian
mm-hmm,
kind of way of thinking in life than Italian American. And I think that's part of what brought me to Europe to move here,
mm-hmm,
Spain. So yeah, I think with me, it's been more, yeah, within my relationship, my romantic relationship, I am engaged to someone of a different culture, different
mm-hmm,
nationality, and all of that.
mm-hmm,
And also, feeling a bit like an outsider where I grew up,
mm-hmm.
feeling a bit torn between two worlds, and just, yeah, like ideologically not agreeing with a lot of the people around me, as a young person.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it makes sense in a sort of modern perspective because Chiron is sort of where we're exiled, right? But we exiled into a place where we learn more, we gain more perspective, and then it becomes our superpower. It becomes the thing that we are good at and that we can then use to help heal others, right? So, yeah, it makes sense that there's this sort of exiled component to your Chiron placement being in the ninth house and being pushed into different countries, different cultures, just because of that longing for wanting to know more and have a better perspective. And as you said, connect more with culture that resonates. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, actually. I love that in the ninth house. What would you say about, I don't know, some planets like Saturn or Mars in the ninth house? Have you ever seen that in someone's chart?
You know what's interesting? I don't often see Saturn there. Like in
Mm,
people I work with. I don't often see it.
me neither.
Um, but it could manifest in a bunch of ways. It could manifest as someone who maybe has some insecurities about their intelligence
Mm,
and like in academic settings. I think it's like a little bit about like building up your self-worth in that area
yeah,
of life,
in
but it could
early
also,
life, right before 30, particularly early childhood.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, even again, like kind of similar to Chiron, maybe like not completely fitting in your cultural background or um being maybe brought up in a cultural environment that doesn't resonate with you. Like some people grow up in their culture. This I understand is that, it's very common that people, will move to another country and be like, I really want to find a community of people that are from my country, my culture, my background. And that's totally like fair. Like it's I totally get that. But we forget about the people that grow up in a culture and they don't resonate with their family's culture.
Hmm.
They also, I feel, go through it a lot, you
Yeah.
know.
Or maybe even quite literally are alienated from the masculine or the father figure in their life. Maybe their
I've
father's a
seen that a
different
lot.
culture or different language.
I've seen that a lot with like Saturn in the 12th, like
Mm.
father figure that passes away early or
Hmm.
absent father in the life, like no father in the life or something.
Yeah, that makes sense, being in the house of hidden aspects, no? All right, so that brings us to the 10th house. You know, most people are gonna immediately talk about the 10th house as the career house. We do look at the MC placement, which is usually in the 10th house. But yeah, I guess it would be our career, but also our reputation, right? How we publicly express ourselves, how we're known, what our public image would be perceived as.
Yeah, like how we're perceived, I
Hmm.
think, by the public. I think a lot of people say that about the rising sign and I do disagree. I think the midheaven, the 10th house
Hmm.
says more about that than the
Hmm.
rising.
Yeah.
Um and but the thing that's interesting is that I've been I've been deep diving into my own midheaven because I've always felt like it's a hard one to understand. Midheaven in Libra, I think you have it too.
I do.
It's like it's how we're perceived, but again, the way we're perceived may not always resonate with how we actually are.
Hmm.
Like I was reading this really interesting post about midheaven in Libra, and it was saying that um that a lot of people will assume that a midheaven in Libra person will just go along with things and that they're so easygoing, um, and that they're just okay or down for whatever. But then the midheaven Libra person will turn around and be like, I didn't consent to that. I didn't agree to that.
Yeah.
It's been happening. Like I'm planning my wedding, and it just happened with my wedding. Um, like the wedding planner was like, "Oh, like you're gonna eat a seat, like your entree is gonna be fish, right?" And I was like, "When?" I was like, maybe that's what you want." That's literally what I said. I was like, "But I didn't consent to that. I didn't explicitly
Yeah,
say
like
that."
where did you get that from?
I think it happens a lot with Midheaven and Libra that we like people just think that we're just gonna like agree. But we're not necessarily gonna just agree. Like I could be agreeable, yeah, but not all the time. I'm not just gonna like let you go along for your freaking ride, you know?
Yeah, that's actually resonating so much. I have actually haven't thought about it that way because I am often perceived that way. Often. And then people try me and they realize I'm not. Easygoing is not a word I would use to describe me as a person, but absolutely, I think people do perceive me that way, particularly in professional settings or more, less intimate relationships, so more professional relationships on first meeting. I mean, I know that's our rising sign, Capricorn rising. But yeah, there is this sense of what would be the word? I guess, yeah, I can't think of the word right now. So I'll just say that it definitely feels like people underestimate me in professional settings. And it is, it's quite funny because
Maybe not underestimate, but like they misestimate. Is that even a word? Like underestimate is to me is like they think you're not capable. I feel like it's more like they just predict that you're gonna do A when you do B. Like they think they know how you move, but they really don't.
Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, I would go a little bit deeper and say that they think you're just gonna go along with it. They think you're just
Yeah.
gonna agree. So it's not even like they're assuming you're one way. They're just hoping that you're just gonna agree with them and make their lives easier. And people who've worked with me long enough start to realize I'm not like that. And there's a surprise factor, and they don't always relate well to that. I've definitely noticed that. It's interesting. It's very interesting, actually. I haven't thought about that. Um, but I will look, for example, in my clients, my friends, and myself, I will look at the 10th house when I want to learn about success and achievement. What is going to help this person be successful? What sort of public path are they going to be
Yeah,
taking in terms of their career?
yeah, like Scorpio midheaven, for example, would have to do something that like really resonates on a soul level
Hmm.
and like kind of dive deep into the work that they do as opposed to staying surface level.
Hmm.
Whereas a Libra midheaven, yeah, like it's more about maybe a lot of collaboration, maybe
Hmm.
a lot of like kind of working with clients could be
Hmm.
a huge part of a Libra person, a
Hmm.
Libra midheaven person. An Aquarius midheaven maybe needs to really do things their way and do things differently and uniquely and not follow society's expectations.
Or
So,
rules.
yeah, so it's like it's really quite interesting, the midheaven, because it's like, yes, it could show the themes of the careers. Like, I often see people with like Pisces midheaven, like in healthcare, because Pisces has to do with healing, um,
Hmm.
or something more spiritual, something related to like holistic health, healthcare. But it also just shows like maybe the approach that they need to take to their career and just the kind of dynamics that would
Hmm.
benefit them the most.
Yeah. And I would also layer on that the transits. One of my favorite 10th house transits is a Saturn transit. I feel like if Saturn goes through your 10th house, by the end of it, you've set something up. You're on your way to something that you've built the foundation for, and you can move forward and keep building on that. So yeah, it's a really cool transit. It's not always easy, but it's definitely cool. For example, I know someone with Pisces in the 10th house. They've just gone through Saturn and Pisces through their 10th house, and they have developed their whole career. They've been studying, and now they're at the beginning stages of starting it. So yeah, it's an exciting one.
Yeah, because Saturn will take away anything that's not aligned.
Hmm.
It restricts. It takes away things that are not like serving you. So
Hmm.
like it could be a tough transit, but like it's also very necessary oftentimes when it happens. It's like, okay, no, this job like that you're at sucks and you need to get laid off because they just are terrible people and
Hmm.
you're meant for something better.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I would also say it might be the way we define success. I feel like, for example, Capricorn 10th house might define success in the very much basic form of the word success, right? I'm achieving something, I'm making money. Whereas maybe a
Or like
Pisces 10th
yeah, like I said,
house,
like Capricorn also like they're building a legacy.
yeah. Yeah,
Like
leaving a
build-
legacy would be considered success for, I believe, a Capricorn 10th house. But like a Pisces 10th house, they might find it more successful if they have freedom. They have freedom in their schedule. That's successful. Or they're making a difference. They're using their compassion to like heal or help people. That might be what they deem success, not necessarily money.
Mhm.
What, out of curiosity, what would you define as success for you? And you have Libra in the 10th house. So I'm curious.
I feel like I feel like my definition for success, it somewhat relates to the Libra midheaven, but I feel like it really relates more to my second house, which is Aquarius, ruled by Aquarius. To me, success is doing what you like, waking up and enjoying what you are doing
Hmm.
and getting paid for it. And also just having a certain degree of freedom in
Hmm.
your life. Like, I like that I'm self-employed and like, I like that if I want to take like a short trip, like I don't have to worry about asking my freaking boss or
Hmm.
any of that. But like a lot of people define success more as stability. I've never defined it as stability.
Hmm.
Like for me, stability doesn't exist.
Hmm.
For me, stability doesn't exist because it's like you could have the best job, like you could, unless you're like a government employee, like in Spain, like it doesn't exist. Like
Hmm.
then yes, you're guaranteed your job for life. But for the most of us, if you're in the private sector, it's not guaranteed. Nowadays especially, and the age of Aquarius is gonna prove me right again and again. And yeah, like for me, that's what success is. It's like having agency over my life and my choices and doing something that I know that I like genuinely enjoy and that I feel like has a positive impact on people. And it's to me, it's not stability. It's not having that stable job. Like it's scary. Like yeah, like some months I could make a lot of money, some months I could make less. But I don't care anymore.
Hmm.
I don't care.
Hmm.
What
Okay.
about how would you define it?
Um, I mean, the definition changes, honestly. I used to feel a lot more like you, I think. Now it's more about the money. I don't know. I don't like to be
Well, like I
bored.
said, like getting paid to do what you like
Yeah.
something that you enjoy. Like I don't want to do stuff for free,
Hmm.
you know? Like
Yeah, no, for me it's I just can't be bored, right? So success to me feels like I'm fulfilled with my interests, with everything. Need a very changing environment. But the Libra makes sense to me because Libra, there's this sense I get a lot of fulfillment from being objective, being not the middleman, but being able to see the bigger picture and lay that out for people or use that skill to benefit whoever or whatever I'm working for, whether it be a one-on-one client or whether it be a corporation, whatever. And there is this sense for me for quality control and beautifying what I do, which I think can be seen with the Libra MC and the Libra 10th house is it is important for me for things to be beautiful, right? For things to be not necessarily just aesthetic, but also balanced and harmonious. I don't always
yeah,
love a
I
chaotic
agree
work
I
environment.
resonate with that. Like, moving into a new apartment, like I put so much effort into the appearance of it and I'm continuing to invest my time and money into that and it's so important and even like I think we both really like have a thing for fashion and
Hmm.
I think part of success for me is looking the part. And that doesn't
Hmm.
mean like I got Chanel on and all that. Like it's just like looking like having like a physical appearance that reflects my essence, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So then moving on to the 11th house puts us in the themes of friendship, communities. Sometimes I feel like it's connected with collective ideas or, like goals, in terms of a collective sense. It might be communities or groups of people that you're not necessarily super intimate with, but have some sort of collective or shared goals, ideas, or hobbies. Yeah.
Yeah, I could say like a thing or two about I could say a thing or two about the 11th house. I have a huge 11th house stellium in Scorpio, my birth chart, so including Jupiter in there, and Venus. So very blessed socially, I would say. But um to me, the 11th house, and I wrote about this in my Substack not too long ago. To me, the 11th house is here to teach us that we could be the smartest person, we could be the most ambitious person, but without other people, without the right people around us, because it also rules our goals and aspirations. Without the right people around us and without supporting each other, we can't get there the same way we would just on our own. Nothing is a solo job.
Hmm.
That's how I view it.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like the 11th house is always something that we crave, whether we're, people who like to spend a lot of time alone or not, introvert or outrovert, shall we say. I still feel like everybody on some level craves community, and that's definitely the 11th house. Of course, like in your case with the 11th house stellium, there would be a lot of focus of that in your life. Maybe you're very social or you socialize a lot, have many friends, different kinds of friends, different groups of friends. Um, but if you had like an isolated planet like maybe Saturn in the 11th house, there could be some difficulties with that. As in contrast, Venus would bring you a lot of like beauty, harmonizing, and abundance in that area of your life. What would you say about the signs, though? Do you think the signs are super important? And
The one
do
like
you,
ruling over the 11th house.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it kind of reveals like how you kind of are in group dynamics and
Hmm.
the kinds of communities you'd collect with like you'd connect with. Sorry. Like for me like with I've got like Aquarius ruling the 11th house like at least for my with my business like I've made so many connections online. I feel more comfortable networking online than in person, which is really weird because in general, I love in-person interactions. But in this case, I prefer networking online. I don't know why. It's just
Hmm.
there's this anonymity to it that's really cool. Um, and yeah, I think that's very 11th house Aquarius. I feel like, for example, maybe someone with Aries 11th house would be like maybe really big on like starting collectives and like initiating
Hmm.
group kind of things and they could be a really good event planner, because they have that motivation to like start collectives and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um and so I've seen it definitely play out, I think, with people I've worked with the 11th house. Like maybe a Virgo 11th house person is going to be a little bit more like gatekeepy with their friends and stuff, you know? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Yeah, I think it shows what kinds of communities we prefer to connect with. It also shows how we are in communities. I feel like, for example, Sagittarius, the 11th house would be very social, be able to read the room. Same with Gemini. Same with Libra, actually. In the 11th house would be really, really good in social situations. It's interesting, with Scorpio in my 11th house, the way it's manifested for me is I do need something a little bit more deep. I'm not really much of like the shallow small talk person. I think most people aren't, but in my case, it's really important for me in general, even at a party. I'd rather sit by myself in the corner than talk about silly things or things that I feel are silly, to be fair. So yeah, I think Scorpio really,
Yeah,
it
I
means I
also have
need that
Scorpio.
level. Yeah. I need more intensity in my communities.
Yeah,
Otherwise
I
I get
also have
bored.
Scorpio ruling over the 11th.
Hmm.
I agree with you. I have Scorpio ruling over the 11th, and I need like deep connection, deep interactions, like deep conversations. Superficiality, yeah, doesn't do it for me. But I
Hmm.
also feel like we could be a bit polarizing in social situations.
Hmm.
I definitely feel like people either really like me or they're kind of like either very intimidated or kind of like they get the wrong impression. Like it's
Hmm.
interesting, similar to Scorpio rising.
Yeah, we're
And
kind of
I
like
think
mirrors.
and I feel like Scorpio midheaven too, because I feel like sometimes I'll just like trigger someone and I'm like, what did I do? Like I didn't do anything,
Yeah, just the
But
existence, the energy you bring. Yeah, absolutely. I think Scorpio can do that. Whereas Leo, I feel like Leo's 11th house is just like the life of the party. They bring the fun, they bring the creative, they bring the light. It's like we need all zodiacs at the party, essentially, because everybody's bringing something a little different. I'm trying to think if there's an example of an 11th house placement I really enjoy. I do like Gemini 11th house. What is that rising? I cannot think.
Leo, Leo.
Okay, there we go. So a Leo rising with Gemini 11th house. Love that. That's one of the placements I like a lot when it comes to 11th house.
I get along with Leo risings. I feel like they're very like just kind of real people. I don't know why.
Hmm.
I feel like like I've said, the moons are a different story, but I like the risings a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, a lot of fun, I think. Um, okay, so then that brings us to our final house, the one that we deem as the most hidden. So planets, signs, whatever occurs in this house can be quite hidden from us. It's usually representing, I feel, in the psychoanalytic point of view, the subconscious or the deeper parts of our brain that we
Even
don't always have
the,
access to.
the unconscious, I would
Yeah,
say. The
yeah,
like it's deep, like deep
yeah.
down in the depths of it. Yeah. The 12th house is like very metaphysical, I feel. Very
Hmm.
metaphysical.
It is accessible though.
Yeah.
Right. So it is something that, if you do pay a lot of attention to, I feel like, it can be a great source of getting to know ourselves, healing, identifying our traumas and patterns. All of that I feel is in the 12th house, as well as, on the bigger level, on the collective scale, it's, psychiatric hospitals and jails and things that
The
are locked
oppressed.
away, the
I think
oppressed. Yeah.
it's like a kind of another part of life that people want to ignore, like the oppressed, the marginalized,
Hmm.
prisoners, um,
Hmm.
yeah, like mental institutions. It's another layer of society that people, even metaphysical, like spirituality has been so demonized,
Hmm.
throughout history.
Hmm.
Um, and so um I find people with like 12th house stelliums or like strong 12th house placements like will often work for like NGOs or like organizations that deal with like, advocating for refugees and
Hmm.
um, different groups of people
Or even work in
in
prisons.
you yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. Definitely. I've definitely seen that with like 12th house people a lot. Like there is this very, very strong sense of empathy. I mean, we don't have 12th house stelliums, but we have 12th house placements. And
Hmm.
I think 12th housers are like always more empathetic typically
Hmm.
than people who don't have those placements.
Yeah, I mean, I have my moon in my 12th house, and I studied psychology. It checks out completely. Um, so yeah, and of course I work in the occult. I work with tarot readings, astrology. There's this spiritual aspect to the 12th house in terms of not just like spiritual like the ninth house. I mean like spiritual like actual connection to source or God or whatever you believe in. There is this seemingly thinner veil, I think, with people who have those 12th house placements, with that beyond our understanding.
Yeah.
I will say 12th house transits, that can be tough.
Yeah.
Partic
Yeah, but especially if it's an outer planet. I feel like inner planets, it's like typically very introspective. Like December, what like again, my 12th house is Sagittarius ruled, so a bunch of planets were in Sag in November, December, I think. And that time of the year of last year, I felt very, very hidden. I felt very like I was just planning things. I was just getting work done. I wasn't really interested in talking to people like that as much as
hermit
usual.
mode.
Hermit mode, yeah. But I feel like a 12th house like Chiron transit or Saturn or Neptune, that's that's hard.
Hmm.
I'm happy I haven't dealt with any of that in a while.
Yeah, I mean, I know I have some clients who had their Saturn return in the 12th house.
Oh my Lord.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I have a lot of respect for people who come out the other side of that, because there's a resilience that gets built there. But yeah, I actually, during Sagittarius season, every single year, I feel super exposed, very emotional, very expressive, because I have the moon in the 12th house in Sagittarius, and the sun is shining right on me during Sagittarius season. So I go into hermit mode because I feel so vulnerable, so exposed, in terms of
Yeah, I don't love December as a month. It's
just,
not
yeah, what's up with
not and
that
it's
month?
not and it's not even like because of the cold necessarily. It's like
hmm
I don't know.
Yeah. The last thing I guess I would say about the 12th house as well is that we can look to it, I think, to give us an indication of how we recharge ourselves. I mean, more particularly, of course, the moon. I have my moon there, so it's a double benefit to have a look at it. But essentially, I feel like there's this sense of, you can understand what you need to fill your cup by looking at what's in the 12th house and what signs there.
Yeah.
Right? So Sagittarius in the 12th house, something that might fill our cups would be travel, changing
Yeah,
something, doing something
travel,
different.
changing my scenery like just will make me 10 times happier.
Absolutely. Also, expression. Expressing yourself is really important when you have Sagittarius in the 12th house. Same with Aries. I feel like Aries is also very expressive. You have an
Leo,
Aries 12th
Leo.
house, you need to express how you feel. You need to, yeah, open the door, be very raw, I think, in some cases. Whereas something like a Pisces 12th house could be quite fun in the sense of recharging yourself is just spending time alone, maybe
They need to
creating something.
they like to they need to go within a lot.
Yeah. And water signs, jump in the water. Fire signs, light a candle. Earth signs, water your plants. Air signs, read a book, It's very much like these sort of activities, I think, associated with your 12th house sign that could really help fill your cup. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, so I guess that brings us to the end of our houses episode. I guess we can just close talking a little bit about some of the transits that we have. Let's start with today. So today we have, well, I'll let you go ahead and explain, Izzy.
Today is a big day in
Mm-hmm.
the astrology world and just the world in general. It is the Chinese New Year, so it is the start of the year of the fire horse.
Mm-hmm. 新年快
Also,
乐, folks. 新年快乐.
it is also the solar new moon solar eclipse in Aquarius. It is also the start of Lent in the Catholic religion and Ramadan in Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of like things, like important dates just aligning up to this one day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I'd love to look into the numerology too. I haven't looked into it of 217, maybe 8, 9, 10. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It's a one year, it's a one universal year. And so I will be posting about this on my Substack later today.
Ooh, nice.
So I guess what I want to talk about briefly is that, we're kicking off the year of the fire horse the same day as the eclipse, and this is like really meaningful because, at least to me, um, I don't know as much about Chinese astrology as the type of astrology that I practice, but the fire horse and Aquarius, the sign of Aquarius, actually have quite a few things in common. Both are connected to disruptions and shakeups, as well as social and cultural changes and rebellion. Um, and so this eclipse, really the way I'm at least interpreting it, and I think a lot of other astrologers are interpreting it, is that it's time to really free ourselves from the self-imposing, small-minded systems that have been keeping us down. And whether that is imposed on us through our family, through society, through our culture, through the government, it's really time to kind of break out of that. And the house where Aquarius is rules in your chart the house ruled by Aquarius in your chart is where you're seeking more freedom and authenticity. Um, and connection to self, a connection to what you need. Um, and so basically, it's really about authenticity and following your authentic path, but at the same time, not to give in to too much urgency and hastiness to really feel out what it is that we want out of life.
Hmm.
Especially that area of life that is ruled by Aquarius in the chart, and to go after it, very logically and rationally, and just to not overthink because the square that the eclipse that this moon is making and the sun are making to Uranus and Taurus, there is some resistance to change right now, and we're seeing that on a societal level. Um, you know, um, they're these like elite, whatever you want to call them, they want to keep us down, right? And so um it's really time to just push through it and ignore the noise, and identify where you've been resistant to that change. And you could do that by looking at the house that's ruled by Taurus in your chart as well.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, a lot of reflection. This is also, we've ended the snake year, which represents like shedding old versions of ourselves and shedding old layers, and parts of our identity that don't really align anymore. So, um, yeah, I would say that is my interpretation of it. And then we do have also the Saturn Neptune conjunction, which is pushing us to kind of merge logic and practicality and planning with visions and ideas and creativity. So it's like if you've got an amazing out of this world idea, this is the time to get it out there. This is the time to get it out there. Um,
Hmm.
but just to use strategy and planning and a good execution when doing it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think it's a point. I mean, you described it so beautifully. I would just add that, what you were saying about the moon in Aquarius, I'm busy looking at the chart now as I'm talking. We have our sun in Aquarius, we have Mars in Aquarius. We have a lot going on there right now. And as you said, it's squaring Uranus.
In
It's
Taurus.
Right. It's a time to get your thoughts in order. Aquarius is a very cerebral sign. I would say writing out your thoughts, getting your thoughts in order. And like you said, is he not overthinking, but observing, and sometimes writing it out or getting a clear idea of what your thoughts are trying to tell you can be really helpful. And yeah, a little bit of breaking away from some of those boundaries is going to be a requirement. You're either going to do it and decide you're going to do it, or you're going to be dragged through it with Uranus. Uranus is right at the end of Taurus. It's about to move into Gemini.
Sun is right at the end of Aquarius. So
Yeah.
there is this, like I said, this sense of urgency, but it's not good to give into that urgency.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
still have to stay grounded and practical, and just not have all this pressure and listen to all this noise.
Right. You got to eliminate the noise as also because what you're trying to do now is identify what it is you really want, right? We need to move forward with a sort of strong foundation in what we want, and how we want to move towards it. Otherwise, like I said, you could get dragged or you could have Uranus causing some disruptions, as it gets to that sort of boiling pot area. We don't want to jump. We just want to make calculated decisions, I think. And then, as you said about Saturn and Neptune, I'm looking at the chart now. I'm in Spain currently, and it is at 00 degrees in Aries. So right now we'll be feeling that quite intensely. Again, just to add to what you said, just ending of cycles, either abrupt or subtle with this eclipse energy. There's just a lot under the surface changing. I think a lot of us are going to be feeling like we're in that in between space, that uncomfortable space, not what we were before, not quite yet what we're going to be. It's very
Kind of,
uncomfortable.
but kind
And
of like figuring out like what we're done with.
yeah.
what we're
and what
not
we're starting.
yeah, like we're not gonna like what we're not gonna entertain anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes we're not sure what that is yet. If we're quite, in that in between place, we might not always know. And I think a lot of us try to comfort ourselves through certainty and identity. So when you feel like there's parts you're not sure of, we can often cling to old ideas, attached to even old behaviors or even people. We're gonna not want to do that this time, and we're gonna try let some of those things go. Yeah, just some honorable mentions. We do have Jupiter in Cancer. So where Jupiter is in your chart, there might be a little bit more abundance depending on the planets as well. If you don't have planets there or you have favorable planets like Venus, you might be having a great time in that area. If not, it might be exacerbating certain things that need to change in that area.
Yeah, and even it's gonna wrap up its transit in Cancer in a couple of months, I think, in I think June or July. So that'll
Hmm.
be an interesting shift. But I've liked the Jupiter in Cancer transit.
Hmm.
Was much more, it's been much more enjoyable than the Jupiter in Gemini. Because it is
Yes.
exalted. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, so it makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, it is currently retrograding, so we might be like revisiting some of these themes we've been going through, over these last few months. But yeah, I agree with you. It's been a very nice transit for me as well, in my seventh house, and crossing my south node. So it's been kind of like a comforting time. It's been really good. Let me have a look here. Some of the quicker moving planets, we have Mercury and Venus in Pisces currently. And yeah, we do have the North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo.
Yeah, still. That's also going to end in the summer as well when the nodal axis shifts to Aquarius and Leo. Lots of Aries energy this year, lots of Aquarius. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, I love that with my Aquarius stellium. Curious to see how, what changes come about. I'm also very curious about the Uranus change, the as it moves into Gemini.
Yeah, because it affected you like right away when
Oh
it
yeah.
briefly retrograded into Gemini and then came back into Taurus. It like clockwork, I remember. You
And
like
I'm pretty sure there's a cycle happening where that sort of chapter is going to come to an end. But yeah, don't want to say too much. We'll see how it goes. And we'll have to check in about that a bit later. Yeah.
yes.
All
Yes.
right. So that is our part two on the houses. Thank you so much for joining us. Please do feel free to like, share, drop us a comment. Let us know that we're not speaking into the void.
Yes.
That's always helpful.
Yes, tell us what you think. And yeah, especially if you're an Aries or an Aquarius person, we'd love to know how you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's quite a bit, right? So Pluto
Boy.
moving into Aquarius. Oh, yeah. And Capricorns. I want to know how you're doing. Neptune, was it Neptune? No, it's Pluto has left your sign. So I also want to know if you've seen some improvements as well. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to Moon Me, an astrology podcast. We hope our insights inspire you to explore your own path. Join us next week as we dive deeper into the cosmos with Roxy and Izzy.